Hi everyone, welcome to ReeKay Sports Cricket. Today's guest is Mark. Mark, hi, how are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me on the show.
Appreciate you coming on. So I know you as a great coach, and please could you tell my viewers a little bit more about what you do in cricket at the moment?
Oh, that's very kind of you to call me a great coach. I'm not sure I'm a great coach, but I've tried my best. Look, yeah, it's been a very varied coaching career, I guess. And I finished playing and then was asked to coach a women's team. So that's how I really first started out in coaching. And then obviously in recent years, I've finished up last year as the coach of the Pakistan women's team, which was a great experience. And now I've just recently taken on a part-time role here on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, where I'm living as the director of cricket for the local association here in Queensland. So on the Sunshine Coast, I apologise. So yeah, no, it's been great. It's been a lot of great experiences, and coaching is just such a passion of mine. And I really encourage other people to get out there if they're finishing their sport to get into coaching teams and kids and women and males. It's fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. It's something I've been just getting into myself. And yeah, definitely love working with kids and coaching them. The passion for sport is amazing. So talking about that, just wanted to ask you a little bit more about like how did you first get into cricket yourself?
Yeah, well, my father was a cricketer. He played for Wellington, where I lived, which is well, it's the state team, I guess, in Australia, and the county team probably in England. So Wellington's the capital of New Zealand, and he ended up playing for Wellington for a number of years. And that's my first real memories was Dad trudging off cricket, and then me, obviously, around that 5 or 6 mark, picking up a bat and being involved in cricket from then until now, really. So it's been a long, long time, and fond memories of watching him play at the local ground. And then obviously when he played for Wellington, a lot of the games that I watched were at the Basin Reserve, which, as you know, is a wonderful ground in New Zealand, albeit a bit windy, but one of the most beautiful grounds with the hill and the old grandstand there, which was the only grandstand actually when I first remembered was the old museum grandstand, which they've just redone and refurbished. So it's great to see that back in action after it was taken out a few years ago with the earthquake.
Yeah, I've seen that ground on TV. It's amazing. I'd love to visit it one day in person. So yeah, so that's how you first got into cricket. So unfortunately, Ben, I heard you had a very bad injury, so that kind of ended your career early. Yeah. So
Yeah, I was sort of about 27, 26, 27, where my back, and still today, it causes me issues. Just wasn't great, and it was pretty major. So back then you didn't really have the scans that you do today, but I knew it was sore and it wasn't heading in the right direction. And the doctor that I saw at the time said, "Look, you're probably better just to give away bowling and do and bat." And I thought, well, yeah, no, that's not really what I want to do, because I wasn't. Although I enjoyed batting, it wasn't really. I wanted to run in and bowl bouncers and stuff like that. So that didn't really interest me too much. So then that's when I sort of turned my attentions to coaching. And I remember the CEO at the time, a chap called Irv McSweeney, who ended up, he played for New Zealand actually as a wicketkeeper batsman, a couple of one days, said to me, "I've got just the job for you. There's a team that you can coach. They need a coach. You'll be great." And he said that it was the women's team. And I looked at him very blankly and said, "Does the women play cricket?" Like, I wasn't, I'd taken no interest in women's cricket whatsoever at all. I did know it existed, but I didn't really know how serious this was. And he said, yeah, absolutely. You'll be coaching Wellington. And I thought, well, okay, I'll give it a go. So that was really my first team. And I learned a lot about coaching. And then, as it's gone on, I think now I'm a far better coach now than I would have been back then with those poor females that I had.
okay, yeah. So imagine back then, women's cricket wasn't so big. Like I know
No.
like back then, no one had really heard too much about women's sports in general, but there's been a big push on that in recent years. I'd say the last 5 years, especially, and it's definitely growing bigger. Especially here, I've seen in the UK, like there's a lot of more media coverage, TV coverage, so they're really trying to push it, which is a great thing. And so one of the things I heard that you done, which is really amazing and really is so much respect to you, is that you actually went to Pakistan to coach the Pakistan women's cricket team, and for no salary, you just done it completely free of charge to obviously add to your skills, to experience a different culture, lifestyle there. How was that experience?
Yeah, that was a great experience. Look, I wasn't going through a great time, as a lot of us do in our lives personally, and I'd sort of gone into a bit of a dark area. So for whatever reason, I was sitting on a couch at home and watching these poor Pakistani girls play against New Zealand, actually, and they were getting thrashed. And it was a little bit embarrassing, to be honest. And I thought they did show glimpses of talent. And I thought, oh, look, I know Mickey Arthur, and I might just, through Perth, when I was in Perth, I might just get hold of him via email. Look, he might answer, he might not. But, you know, I was thankful that he did, and he knew who I was, and came back to me and he said, look, give me a couple of days, but I think we might be able to organise something here. And anyway, the short story is, before I knew it, probably about a month later, I was end of September 2017. I was on a plane bound for Dubai via Lahore.
Okay.
So 17 hours in a plane, leaving New Zealand and leaving the family, and going into Pakistan. And as we well know, probably around the world, Pakistan hasn't got the best reputation of safety.
Yeah.
And a lot of my friends thought, yeah, well, we kind of know that you're a bit crazy, a bit out there, but this has gone one step further than probably what you normally would behave like. And I landed at 2:30 in the morning, surrounded by police and cars. I thought we're going through presidential elections in America. I actually thought I was the president when I landed. There were people running up to me and whisking me off through gates, and I got through, immigration pretty quickly, and I thought, wow, this is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
And I remember all of a sudden arriving at the NCA in Lahore, the National Cricket Academy, and being whisked upstairs, and people, helping with my bags. And I was used to, I kind of want to carry my own, and people grabbing my bag, and I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But it being stiflingly hot, like extremely hot at 2:30 in the morning. And they'd all gone, and then left me with a carton of water, and then sort of at 3:45 or in the morning, I just remember sitting on my bed thinking, what have I done? I think I actually want to go home. But I was stuck for at least 5 weeks, and the adventure had only just begun. So that was my first memory of Pakistan, and then obviously waking up, and again, waking up to sort of about 32 degrees at 9 o'clock in the morning, and the humidity, and this big complex just surrounded, big gates and electric, fences, barbed wire fences, and I thought, oh wow, where's Mickey? No, Mr. Mickey. No, not here. He's on tour. Oh God, by myself. And so it was pretty frightening, because you walk into the dining area, of course, and there's these sea of faces just looking at you. Like, it's the new coach. And they were very friendly, the men there, and they helped me, and I was very grateful to all the staff at the NCA. They were fantastic people to make me feel welcome. So, as I said, that was the start of what was a pretty amazing adventure.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Experience, like a different country, different culture. So how was actual facilities there with the coaching? So I read some of the stuff you said. So obviously it was all new, especially with the women's cricket there. And so how did you find that? The changes you made, it must have been really difficult from what you're used to.
Yeah, well, it was extremely difficult, because the facilities were okay, but they weren't fantastic for the girls. I mean, the girls were really, when you compare where women's cricket is now for Australia, England, India, New Zealand, and then you compare it for Pakistan, it was a little bit back from that step, although they were trying to make an effort because they knew that they had to. And I guess I was the first part of that effort to try and give it some momentum. But Look, certainly just the equipment that the girls were using, the bats were far too heavy for them. They were boys' bats, a lot of them. The balls, yeah, a lot of little things that you wouldn't expect in New Zealand or Australia. You kind of think, wow, this is almost like when I first took the Wellington women over. It was almost like that. It was like, well, okay, well, we've got to have women's cricket, so yeah, just do that for them, and they should be fine. Look, we've got them a coach. He's a Western. They should be fine now. So it's quite difficult from time to time, but the girls were extraordinary in how they just coped with it and carried on. And there's been a couple of media statements where these poor cricketers that were on salary hadn't been paid for 6 months. And the theory behind that, which is a very interesting theory, people will be fascinated, was they held back their pay for 2 months before the World Cup.
Okay.
To try and motivate them to do well at the World Cup. So then when they didn't do well at the World Cup, they didn't pay them. So after a period of 6 months, these girls hadn't been paid because they sort of thought, well, your performance is bad, so we're not paying you, and we want you to be really good at the World Cup in 2000, the ODI World Cup before I took over, so we're not paying you here either. So these poor players hadn't been paid for 6 months.
Wow.
Now, I know in England and Australia and New Zealand and all the other developed countries, even in India, I would suggest that if you didn't pay your players after 6 months, most of them wouldn't be playing.
Yeah, for sure. Also,
so those types of things we had to deal with. And look, the man that was in charge there, Najim Sethi, once he found out about it, it was sorted. But it was pretty disappointing that type of thing that was still going on.
Yeah, unfortunately, them things do seem to happen. I've read about them sort of things happening, not just obviously in all types of life and different types of jobs that can happen. What I read as well is that the Pakistan women cricketers really praised you. There's a lot of politics they talk about that goes on there with like how they're treated, favoritism, but they really liked your approach. Obviously, you're in that approach of that everyone's equal, you treat them all fairly. So I read some really nice reviews from some of the players there. So yeah, so after that, you come back now to Australia, yeah? And you're coaching there now. How's that going?
Yeah, that's great. Look, it's mainly with men, although I do oversee the women's program. But the Sunshine Coast Scorchers they play in Brisbane first grade and Queensland Cricket first grade. So and then there's club teams that belong to the Sunshine Coast Cricket Association. So I oversee that program. It's a part-time job, but it's enjoyable. It's mainly dealing with males now, who, a different kettle of fish, and they're, some of them are very headstrong, and just ensuring that our pathways are right and that we're heading in the right direction and our coaches are reviewed, and we're trying to string some performances together. They haven't had a great start to the season, so that was partly my role to come in and try and just put some structures around it. We were lucky enough last week to win our first grade males one, and our second grade males one. So that was fantastic. That's a really good start for us, and a much improved performance from the first 3 or 4 weeks that they had. So we're just starting to develop. We've got Nick Selman over here who played for Glamorgan. And he's just he's taken over the captaincy of the Sunshine Coast Scorchers. So a really good young English player. Well, he's Australian, but got an English passport. So looking forward to working with him. And, he got his first 50 after being in quarantine in the weekend as well. So that's a great start for him.
Okay, that's great. So, great. Just wanted to now talk a little bit about, when people are first coming into the sport, so at a young age, they're first coming in, just from your experience as a coach, like, what would you recommend? Like, so if let's say I'm 10 years old or 8 years old, around that sort of age, and I'm coming into cricket and I want to learn the game, what is like the best advice you would give?
Look, I think keep it really simple. And at that age, have lots and lots of fun and allow them to make lots and lots of mistakes. Because that to me is the only way you're going to learn, and things, I think really for me, it's interesting. I do a lot of private coaching, and I've got a young 9-year-old tomorrow, and I had 2 young girls today, and they were 9 and 10, 2 sisters. And it's just the real basics of batting. I was always taught by Martin Crowe that your nose goes to the bowler. Your nose generally is in the centre of your body and centre of your head, unless it's been broken, then it might go that way or that way. You've got some problems. But generally speaking, if your eyes are level, then you've got the ability to play both sides of the wicket, and you've got 2 eyes on the bowler. So nose towards the target was always Martin Crowe's thing. Then that makes your eyes level. And that's just a really simple thing for kids. And then just even with cricket, I think we put in stumps, but when they're learning the game, take the stumps away. And then that way they're free to hit the ball and not make any mistakes. Kids know when they're about to be bowled, but initially when you're teaching them the game, they don't need to know that they're going to be bowled. They just need to know that they can hit the ball. And generally speaking, if you pitch a ball up, a young man or young lady will hit straight. If they go short, they'll automatically go back and hit the ball anyway, because they pick up the length of the ball pretty quick as kids. But my advice, keep it nice and simple. Don't confuse it for them. Don't fill them full of nonsense and things that go on as they develop. That'll happen anyway as they naturally develop. Unfortunately, they'll get 100 coaches telling them that you've got to play back, or you've got to go forward, or you've got to do this, you've got to do that. But as kids, I think the most important thing is have fun. Try and keep the sessions really interesting. Do a little bit of fielding, do a little bit of bowling, because they're all going to be bowling and batting and fielding at that age. And as long as they can take away 1 or 2 things that they can learn from: nose to the bowler, chin over your front leg when you're batting, head towards the target when you're bowling, I think you've had a pretty good session. And I always, some of my sessions, we play for a chocolate bar. If they can hit me straight 10 times with cones straight, then they get a chocolate bar. It's costing me a lot of money in chocolate bars at the moment. I don't know whether that makes me a good coach, but they're certainly hitting straight. And it's amazing if you do things like that, they pick it up really quickly when there's an incentive. My goodness.
I can imagine.
Yeah, they pick it up really quickly. There was one young guy, actually, he said, "Look, I don't really like it." So I thought, right, wow, what am I going to do here? Yeah, so that was a little bit awkward, but most kids like chocolate, so you're okay.
Really okay with that. Yeah, so that's what, when I was learning to become a coach myself, that's one of the things I picked up on, that they really encourage you not to micromanage the kids, in terms that you shouldn't be going into too much detail of okay, if you're trying to hit an off drive, it has to be this technique, this way. It's more like show them the area you want them to hit the ball and try and let them figure out how they're going to hit it there. And there's a big insight for me, but how to get into the mind of a child to teach him and to coach him. It shouldn't be this micromanaged way, which was amazing. And it makes a lot of sense to me. And we see a lot of some of the greatest players, like Stephen Smith, for example, their techniques are not what we would call textbook techniques, but he's one of the best
Absolutely.
players.
Absolutely, 100% agree. And, it's the same with bowlers as well. You see guys like Malinga, who's had a wonderful career for Sri Lanka. Well, you'd never teach that. Yeah. You'd never coach that. But look how successful he's been.
Exactly.
And it's natural for him. If you tried to change him, he'd be injured.
Yeah.
That's the reality. And part of my injury was a lot of coaches, or a couple of coaches that I had, was they wanted me to get like Richard Hadley, because everybody had to be like Richard Hadley, because Richard Hadley was our most successful bowler in New Zealand. So every bowler coming through should be like Richard Hadley, and every leg spin in Australia was 10 years ago was taught to be like Shane Warne.
Yeah.
What people forget is that there's only ever going to be one Richard Hadley, one Shane Warne, and how they bowled, but that'll be their own. That's them. You'll never. You might have people that look similar, but they'll never be the same. They'll never be the same.
Yeah.
So they'll all be different and individual, like we all are as human beings.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. So yeah, that was definitely a big thing I learned. with the coaching. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about cricket at the moment and like how are things going with women's cricket. You know, obviously we've had this coronavirus situation, lockdowns everywhere, but I saw there was some matches between Australia and New Zealand there. How's things going?
Yeah, well, there has been a little bit of cricket over here, and I just noticed that, there's a little bit of the Indian women's IPL that's being played in Dubai at the moment. So there are three teams over there playing. I think they played their first game last night. The Supernovas, I think, might have beaten whoever they were playing. But
Yeah.
over here, the women's Big Bash is on. So that is a very intense 6-week competition, and they're all in a bubble in Sydney. And, you know, the Elise Perry, Elise Healy team, Ash Gardner, the Sydney Sixers, look like they're a very, very strong team. They'll be hard to beat. They've got some good young players too. So that's going on. And then there was, before that, just recently, there's been a New Zealand-Australia series where New Zealand were completely outclassed, unfortunately for a Kiwi. But, you know, Australia are clearly in women's cricket far and above anybody else at the moment by a considerable margin that the rest of the pack is chasing. I think England, India, South Africa are in there, and then I think New Zealand's pushed back again. I would say out of those 5 countries, Australia, England, India, South Africa, New Zealand are probably in 5th place at the moment, chasing the pack. So a little bit of work for New Zealand cricket to do there, and they need to move pretty quickly, because women's cricket, as you quite rightly said at the start of the program, very fast-moving train. And if you don't have a ticket, you're going to get left behind pretty quick.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, on to the men's team. So obviously they've not played in a long time, but the last couple of World Cups done really well. That World Cup last summer here, oh my God, I've not seen a match like it. Like that was the best match you could ever see, I think. I don't know how we would ever get a closer match than that. Like to go down to not just a super over, but to be tied on boundary count. What are your thoughts on that game?
Oh, look, I think, you know, you've got an English background, obviously, and I think every English person would probably say in their heart of hearts, call it a draw, share the trophy, 6 months each.
Yeah.
I mean, to get down to that, I know there probably has to be, and there'll be people out there, well, you've got to have a winner, Mark. You know, you do have to have a winner.
Yeah.
And on this occasion, look, England are the winner, but I think when you go through that whole process, as you quite rightly said, it could not get any closer. And I think when both teams have battled it out for that long, look, 106 overs or whatever it was, or 104 overs, whatever the super over is, 102, and you couldn't separate them. I think maybe there might be something in there where you say, okay, you have it for 6 months, we'll have it for 6 months, and be done with it. But look, England, I think, played really well consistently throughout that tournament. So when it seems a little bit odd, but I think deservedly they've got the trophy. They are the world champions. New Zealand played pretty consistent cricket and probably were a little bit unlucky at the last hurdle. But one day cricket, New Zealand are performing really, really well. And I think they've got a very good balanced side. They've got that little bit of experience with Ross Taylor in there, and obviously Kane Williamson is really leading the team well. And I still think he's very young as a captain, Kane. I don't think he's an old captain at all, but he's starting to gain that experience and maturity as a leader and becoming a really, really good leader as he goes on. I don't think he was a natural leader. I think he's worked his way into that and still working into it. But I don't think he is really some people will disagree, but I don't think it comes easy for him as a leader. But I can see that he's sort of becoming like the great Richie McCaw of rugby, and I see him alongside that now, the great Richie McCaw from the All Blacks. Don't think he was a natural leader when he started out, but my goodness, by the end of it, he was a fantastic leader of men. And I can see Kane's pathway very similar to that. And so I think New Zealand are in good hands for the next 3 or 4 years. And, you know, you've got Bolt, you've got an ageing Southey, but he still offers you that experience. And then Neil Wagner's had a wonderful, wonderful Test career with the way that he bowls, that aggressive attacking nature. And I do think that the one-day team is really balanced. I think the Test team still needs a bit of fine-tuning. But, for New Zealand being such a small country, unlike other countries like England, where they've got specialist one-day players and T20 players and then Test players, New Zealand doesn't have that luxury really. They've got Taylor, Williamson play both formats. Bolt's playing a lot of all three formats now. So because we are smaller, we're not quite as lucky to have some of our players resting while others are playing Test cricket. And again, Australia are pretty lucky. They've almost got a T20 side, a one-day team, and a Test team. But I think we do really well. And you couldn't be prouder of your cricket team at the moment. We've had our moments, but I think New Zealand will be great. They've got a home series against Pakistan coming up soon, so that'll be a challenge because I think Pakistan have got some good players. But again, I watched a couple of nights ago Pakistan and Zimbabwe. I've been watching that series closely.
Amazing match.
Very, disappointing for me. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's no disrespect to Zimbabwe because they've played really, really well. But what I see from Pakistan at the moment is no real clarity of roles in that team.
Yeah.
And I see a team. I see some players not knowing whether they're in the team or out of the team, and you can see that by the selections. Yeah. And when you start doing that as a coach, doesn't matter whether they're kids or they're high-performance athletes. They don't have a specific role, or they don't know their role, or they're not sure whether they're in the team or not. It creates havoc. Yeah. Yes, you have to have competition, but I thought Zimbabwe were actually very unlucky to lose that series because they played some serious cricket.
Yeah, some of it. The result with a super over the tie, and they should have won the match during the 50 overs. Really, there's thanks to Baba Azam that kept Pakistan in the game at that time. So they should have lost.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the first match was very close as well.
It was.
Yeah, like I said, you're right. When it comes to the selection, like the big change that England made a few years back when Ian Morgan took over and Andrew Staffs took over was that they were behind the players. Even if they said to him, "Go express yourself. You're not going to be under pressure for your place. We're going to put the faith in you," and then you still have a flourish. So you're very right. Like, they should try and back players a bit more. They've got so much talent as a team, and yeah, that should be a good series against you guys. Like we say, they're hot and cold. We're over here during the summer for the matches against England, and they were very competitive in their first Test match. They should have actually beat England, but they let it slip. Butler got a great 100, and Wokes managed to get England home. So yeah, that should be a good series. You got a very good fast bowler that I've been watching in the IPL recently, Lockie Ferguson.
Yes.
He's on serious pace. I like my fast bowlers. Always been a big fan.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's one of the, I'd say, elite in the world. Definitely in the top 5 for fast bowling.
He is. He is. He's quick. He's had a couple of injuries, so hopefully that can, he can keep them at bay and they can keep him on the park. I think he has to be managed pretty well. I'm not sure whether he's quite ready for the vigours of bowling 20 overs in a Test match yet. Yeah. Time will tell there. But look, we do have some great young cricketers coming through. The boy Kugeline, whose father played for New Zealand, Scott Kugeline. He's a very useful cricketer. Tim Sightford is a good young cricketer as well. So there are some good young cricketers coming through that are just great. Both of those young guys that I spoke about just played in the West Indies Premier League. So they played in the Caribbean Premier League recently. So they're gaining that little bit of experience as well. So that holds them in great stead for when they're playing against these international teams as well. The more that you play this game, the better that you become. So they're exciting young talents. And as you said, Lockie Ferguson's only 23, 24 as well. So he's got some serious wheels. It's just managing him through, I think, at this particular stage. And then you're sort of looking at New Zealand having a real quick, and you've got Bolt, who's becoming a fantastic fast bowler. For me, I think he's ahead of Southey. I think he'll end up behind Richard Hadley as one of our premium fast bowlers that we've ever had. No doubt about it in my mind. And Southey will be close too at the end of his career.
Yeah, I've seen Bolt in the IPL as well, playing for Mumbai. He's doing a great job, swings really well. But just for me, like, I just like to receive all-out fast bowlers. So, like, the likes of, like, Brett Lee and Shoaib Akhtar when I was growing up, they were really an inspiration for me to watch. And now, like, you got the South African guy. He was, like, 158. Plays for Delhi. Not Rabada, the other guy. I can't pronounce his name. You know the one I'm talking about?
No, I do. Yeah. Very, very slippery.
Yeah, like serious pace, like they're bowling with. So yeah, like I said, Lockie Ferguson's over 150 as well. So I just love to watch when you're seeing a real fast bowler just steam in and just bowl as fast as he can. And for me, that's just one of the best sights there is in cricket, you know.
And I think, you know, we go back to that previous conversation when we had the advice to young ones: if your eyes aren't level, your nose isn't facing the bowler. You got one eye like that, you know, because the poor kids have helmets on, and then all of a sudden the eye goes that way, and they're playing with one eye. You're playing against one eye at 158 kilometres. It's not going to be very pleasant. So you get your eyes level, young boys and girls out there. So when you do come up against 158, at least you've got two eyes and you can get out of the way, because, you know, it's quick. It is very, very quick.
It is.
And I remember when I first was over here, Sean Tate played up at the local cricket ground pre-season. They had South Australia. They have all the state teams come and play at where I am at the moment, Sunshine Coast Scorchers. And I watched him bowl. So this is going back to 2009. Oh, wow. The wicketkeeper, he would have been 10, 15 metres in from the boundary, and you could hear it thumping into the gloves. I've not seen anyone live bowl that quick. He was extraordinarily fast.
Wow.
And you know, you watch him on television, you know that it's quick, but in real live action, I just looked and thought, wow, this guy's quick. Wow. Lightning quick. So and I think he was 155, 156, or actually I think he might have topped nearly 162.
Wow. Do you think that's like it's more natural, or it can be coached?
I think it's fast twitch fibers. I think a lot of it is, look, you can get guys quicker, but that is, you know, you look back at Michael Holding and those guys, they were pretty quick too. Jeff Thompson. A lot of it, I think, it is just the way that they're built. They've got fast twitch fibers, and for whatever reason, they can bowl extremely fast. And then the rest of us mere mortals, you know, 40 k's slower. So I think it's just the way that people are built. I do think that you can coach guys to get a bit quicker, but I'm not sure whether you can coach guys to get 25 k's quicker. I think that's just a natural. You either can or you can't. So yeah, they're just freaks.
Yeah, amazing skill to have. Really great skill to have. But,
absolutely.
Just looking back what you were saying about the One Day International World Cup final, the super over. So I don't know if you saw recently in the IPL, they had a super over in one of the games. Okay, so it was between Kings 11 Punjab and Mumbai. They had a super over that was tied, so they actually had a second super over. So that is something maybe the ICC could look into, because obviously being an England supporter, we were so happy to win the World Cup, even though it was the closest possible way. Like, it was just that feeling, like, you know, you're so nervous. Like, is he going to get the ball in? Is he going to whip the ball off before he gets to say, oh, that moment there, oh my God.
Yeah.
And it was just crazy. Like, it was it was a heart attack kind of moment. You know, your heart pounded. But but from a sports point of view, taking the biasness out of it, would have been more fair if they'd done what they'd done. So in the IPL, I thought that was quite good. So if you tie the super over, no boundary count, nothing, you play another super over. You know, so then in the end, you're going to get some sort of conclusive winner. Like in a penalty shootout in football, same thing. If you keep equaling your penalties, you just keep going until someone eventually has the win outright, you know. So I feel for you there, and maybe that's something ICC can look into, because it was a bit of it's not a nice way to finish a game, like from, like I say, a neutral's point of view or from a New Zealand fan's point of view, you know.
Well, I think you're right too, and it would have been terribly sad for England if New Zealand had won that, because I think overall England had played the better cricket consistently, as I said, over the whole tournament. They were really good. New Zealand were a little bit up and down, but made the final. But I think it would have been really sad if England had have lost that final, because really they'd played consistent cricket the whole way through. They'd been the best team consistently, I felt, the whole tournament. And I do agree with you. I think that's a really good idea. If you tie that super over, right, let's go again. And 6 more balls, and you guys, the team that batted first now bowls first, or whatever, you know, you can easily do that. Vice versa, opposite. Like they do with the rugby league over here as well. It's golden point. You keep going until you get the 1 point that gets you ahead, or the try, or whatever it is. Until that time, you keep going, and then I think it's 5 minutes each way, and then I think it's another 5 minutes each way, or whatever it might be. And then at the end of that 10 minutes, if you're tied, that's it. It's even 1 point each. So that's a really good idea as well. I think that's a fantastic idea. The IPL's really good for coming up with new and innovative ways, like the timeout for the coaches, where they can get to the players in the T20 and have that 2 minutes with them, just to say, look, you know, and we talk about coaching. You're not really coaching Virat Kohli, to be honest. You're not really coaching Steve Smith. You're just sort of asking questions, like, what do you guys think? Where are we at? What do you think about that? Should we try this person to bowl? More suggestions from where you're sitting 60 metres back. You're certainly not going to go out to Virat Kohli and say, right, this is bowling, or this is what you have to do in the next 2 overs, because he's going to look at you and say, yeah, you just keep walking that way. I'm here in the middle. So I think that's a great innovative idea that the IPL have done. It just gives them a little bit of time out to assess where both teams are at.
Yeah, that thing, just that aspect of the coach and the captain. So you know more about this. I always wondered. So I know they say they kind of discuss it, but when it comes down to like when they go to decide what to do when they toss the coin, bat or bowl, is it down purely to the captain, final say, or is it the coach final say? Because, you know, in different sports, for example, in football, it's the manager's final say, like, you know, and many other sports, the manager really controls a lot of the tactical aspects. But in cricket, I hear a lot of the time it's the captain. So from your experience, how is it?
Oh, look, I think it's a little bit of both, but I think you're only there as a coach to offer suggestions, and give a different perspective on things. If you're in disagreement with the captain, and that can come in, a lot of that in cricket in particular can come into, has the pitch been used before? Is it like New Zealand, when it's green, is it better to bowl? You know, a lot of New Zealand pitches and in the English pitches are quite bowler friendly. So should we bowl first? Are they a stronger batting team than a bowling team in many cases? So there are those little things. But I think generally speaking, I believe that 24 hours out before the game, if not a little bit longer, it's almost your captain takes over. And they're the decision makers. You might say, right, who's going to be 12th person today? And you would have made that decision 24, 48 hours beforehand. You'll have a fair idea. And then, as a coach, you might say, okay, is X a better fielder than Y? Does Y offer us a bit more off the bat? Can Y bowl? Does X bowl? Who's the better bowler? So you're going through those sorts of things. But generally speaking, at the end of the day, if your captain's not comfortable with the person that they're walking out with, if they're not comfortable with that 11, then I don't think you're going to get the best out of the playing group. So I sort of think it's very 80-20. That's the rule that I would use. 80% the captain's decision, 20% the coach has a little bit of an input.
Okay, cool. That's a nice insight to know how that process works. Because sometimes, like I say, like, you know, in football, the manager takes the heat all the time. In cricket,
Mm.
like, it's the coaches take the heat, but then it's sometimes a lot of the decisions he's not making them. He's not really involved in the tactical side. A lot of the time on the field with a selection, like, because I would have thought with a selection like in football, they decide the night before, okay, this is 11 players we're going to go with. You're the captain of the team, but you're just like on the pitch for captain. But that decision doesn't really involve the captain to decide the players. But in cricket, it's very different. It seems like the captain plays a massive role in that whole process. Yeah, which is, I guess it's got, like you say, it's got its benefit, that because they're the one that's on the field, so they should feel comfortable with the players they're playing with. Have you ever had
Yeah, 100%.
you had any clashes with captains before?
Oh, look, I think there's always I think there's always discussion and great debate, no doubt about it, and I think that's healthy. I think you should have some discussion about, or certainly offer a suggestion. And cricket is so different to any other sport because the manager in football can get to the team after, and rugby and in most other sports, after about 45 minutes or 40 minutes, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
In cricket, you may not be able to get to the captain for 2 hours.
True.
If it's a one-dayer, it's 3 hours, 3.5. If it's a T20, it's an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And if it's a test match, it can be a 2-hour session, 2-hour 20 session.
Yeah.
So you're never quite getting to your captain as much as you can. So they are basically out there. You're sitting back 60 metres away watching this whole thing unfold in front of you, and they're in the battlefield. Whereas after 45 minutes, the manager can look at his watch and go, right, we're going to change what we're doing. We're 4-0 down. This isn't working. We're going to play a 4-3-3 or whatever they do. And then you've got that advantage of the manager coming in and saying, we're going to change the tactics here because we're 4-0 down. In cricket, if they're, 250 for one at lunch, it's like, oh boy, we need to change maybe because they're going okay. And at 250 for one, if that ever happened, you are in a lot of trouble.
That's a lot of runs in one session.
Yeah, you probably need a new captain if they're 250 for one because he's bowled the wrong people. Yeah, that might be when you say to him, hey, did you know that the opening batter doesn't bowl? Just as a thought, he doesn't actually bowl. But that guy there, the big 6'7" bloke that bowls 150k, you probably could have bowled him before the opening batter.
For sure. Okay, look, I really appreciate having you on. Okay, really.
Pleasure.
Yeah, there's so much information. That's why I like to interview people like this, and for my viewers to see it, because there's so much knowledge you can pass on to them, and to hear your stories. And you've done an amazing job in cricket, and I wish you success with your current plans and your future plans. And we'd love to have you on later down the line. Yeah,
fantastic. I'd love to be on, and good on you for doing this. It's fantastic. I really enjoyed it. It's been great to chat.
Thank you so much. So for my viewers, please remember to subscribe, like, and share. Thank you so much. Bye.